Shut the fuck up. As a great man once said, fuck it, we'll do it live. I wonder if having the pop filter in front of me will help a lot. Maybe I can speak in my normal voice. Perhaps we should do an intro. Welcome to Evil Dojo. Today's topic, Quines, or Quines, or Queens, or however you want to pronounce this word. In C. We're just going to do some recreational programming, chill out, explore, do some shit that doesn't really matter in as educational and fun of a way as possible. I'm your host, the ghost with the most, Dark Mage. You know where to hit me up. Now, without further ado, so, yeah, one sec. For those who are unaware of what a quine is, or a keen, or a quine, or quine, how to pronounce.
Quine. 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 Quine.
Quine. There we are. So, what is a quine? Quine is a self-referential computer program. That's my version of it. It's referred to in Gödel Escher Bach. It's a very trippy book that I need to go through entirely at some point, but a friend of mine in college was really obsessed with it. Self-referential objects and things of this nature. It's very interesting that Wikipedia loads in two different kind of ways now, depending on what page you load. It's really random. I haven't figured it out yet. Anyway, sorry if I sound a little bit stuffy too. See. So, like as an example, they give 3 different examples of quines in Python. They give us an example of a quine in Java. They give us a another quine in Java. There's a couple other implementations, but there's this dude who wrote a Mega Ouroboros quine. He also wrote this book that I really wish I had. Yes, right here, The World of Transcendental Programming, or rather, The World of obfuscated, esoteric, artistic programming. So this dude threw down a Quine relay, right? It's a mega program, a mega self-referential program with over 100 plus programming languages. Each one designed to generate another program written in the next language out of all of them. He even started with a 50 version, but 128 programming languages. Just even imagine, most people don't even know that many. So he would have had to take the time to actually do all of this. Which means he had a lot of time on his hands. It's very good. Very skilled. Very effortful. So he starts off with Ruby, and like his book is very heavily rooted in Ruby. But he has a lot of references to C, and because of the way that things are done in C, we can actually do Quines very easily. I've even started working with a few myself. So check it out. I've got a folder here. There's a bunch of Q files that I've started working on. And the idea is very simple. It's that I think, and actually it's a good idea I'm doing the stream now, because I've been meaning to go back through these files and mark off which ones are actually functionally working Quines, because the idea is it would be very interesting and kind of fun to iteratively work on individual like patterns for Quines in order to kind of vary up like the way that things can be animated, because surely you can create art by doing this. This is art at its finest form, the transformation of science into art in a procedural and mechanistic fashion. I think it's kind of beautiful, and I've always found it fascinating, but in college especially didn't have enough time to really invest. Well, here I am, how many years after college? 14, 15, something like that. So let's take a look at Q1. Bunch of errors, right? Because I'm taking advantage of certain nuances in the C language that allow me to compile in a certain way. So to test that this works, right, we have to write the output image recognition. Interesting. So you write this out to another file like q1a.c, right? And then we gcc q1a.c. So we run that code. We write that out to q1b.c, and then we take the diff of q1a.c and q1b.c. You'll find that they are the same program. So if you were to continuously do this, for instance, take gcc q1b.c and then run that output and rewrite it to q1c.c, and then we take the diff of q1a.c and q1c.c, you'll find that they are the same program. The same thing with q1b.c and q1c, same program. So this is kind of useful in a like understanding that the system works kind of way. So this Q1 that I have here is a functionally working Quine, but it doesn't do anything really interesting. All it does is simply regurgitate like the program back out to you. We can step through how this works, and then I'll start going through the other files and show you the small little changes that I'm beginning to make in developing my own Quines, because a lot of this can be derived out of the book. And actually, I kind of feel like it'd be kind of fun to teach a class on Quines, like the whole point is that it's kind of useless, but at the same time it's kind of fun. It's kind of like free. Like, I don't know. It's like a nice mental territory. So, getting back to the book, right? Like, there's a lot in this stuff. He has a Ruby client that actually does something like this, where it prints the whole program, but it also prints the Earth in the center of the program. And every time you run the program, it like renders the next frame of the Earth, so it maintains like the same source code, but like the ASCII art in the middle changes, so that if you like repeatedly compile it, it's like a flipbook animation where you have like a rotating Earth continuously going. Sorry, somehow the text got censored on Restream. I hope that it wasn't censored on Twitch. I thought I turned all that off. My apologies. But yeah, it's fucking cool, right? Like, worthy of exclamation. So, here's another example of a program that's rendered onto a 3D trash can spiral thing. Starts off with the highlighted letters eval, and then the rest of the program. And when you run it, generates the 3D model for itself, which is fucking sick. So, like, the 3D model has its own code on it, and when you run the code, it generates the model, which is like, whoa. So, this dude's obviously been doing it far longer than I have, but I've been interested in this idea for a very long time. It's about time we spend more time with it. It's time to get my back right. There's a lot of content to go through in this territory, especially in the construction of individual quines. So let's take a look at this quine. We have a char s, which is a string that contains some text, and for all intents and purposes, my approach to this is to simplify, like how like variable names. We could go through the process of making variable names longer for better understanding's sake, but hey, Plutonium, just talking about clients here. So in this one, individual variables are single letters to simplify the typing, because there's a lot of typing involved in the creation of these, and when you're trying to get the changes correct, you're going to find yourself making very rapid fire back and forth kind of things. And I'm interested in code golfing this whole process. So that's why I have so many files, because once I get one working, you move it to another file that you can kind of work with. So that way you don't lose the initial one. You get to see individual working clients over time, so you can aggregate them together potentially. So to start with, here's our main. For every character in S, and so long as that character is not null, in other words, not the end of the string, and at the end of the loop, we're going to increment to the next character. If that character is not ASCII 64, in other words, not the @ symbol, we're going to go ahead and put that character on the screen. So if at like at is a special character in the string. As you can see, every other piece of code from the main shows up, but you notice like char s equals and then empty space. So that empty space is supposed to represent everything inside of this string. That's what the @ symbol is meant to represent. That's how it's self-referential. So if we're pointing to a character and it's not the @ symbol, we put that character on screen. Otherwise, if that character is the @ symbol, then we're going to put a double quote. We're going to print the whole string S, and then we're going to put double quote. So this is how this actually works. So, how do you evolve from here? Like, what? Knowing that that's like the basic Quine, what do you do next, right? So we have Q2.c, we have Q3.c. Here's Q3. So Q3 is a Quine. Check it out. It's a very tightly knit one. Instead of having the if statements, I've changed it up into C ternary notation, where you can kind of have like inline statements by using a special question mark type syntax. Question mark means if. So if p is not equal to 64, or in other words the at symbol, put the character. Otherwise, that's what the colon is for. We put double quote, which is put char 34, and we print fs, and we put double quote again. Now, there's a big caveat with working with the ASCII numbers versus using double quotes. And actually, he briefly mentions this in the book itself. We also get into why that is later. He has several Quines in his book. I am a noob in comparison to this person, but it's an interesting path to kind of walk down, right? Like, let's take a look at Q4. This is another Quine, and I think this one's slightly varied up so that, like, this is my first attempt at varying what the Quine actually does. Wow, shout outs to the 6 fucking viewers I got right now. Jesus. Love you guys. Let's take a look at what this one does. So, it looks like I'm just printing basic spaces given the output, right? So yeah, I'm printing a space, which is 32, followed by 59, which is, I believe, semicolon, and another space. And this was my first experiment, right, in trying to vary up like what the output looks like, because you still want to generate a Quine, right? You still want to generate code that, when compiled, generates its own output. It doesn't matter what format you put the first file in, so long as when you compile the first file that it generates the second file and the third file, and the second and third file have to be the same. Because the first file is your development file. You know, you can format this however you want, whatever makes it easier to do. And Quine development could be an actual like topic that we get into, because this is something I'm curious about, kind of advancing. Because this book is a really good book, and if I could get a physical copy of this book, I swear to God, I will go to Japan and use Boku no Nihongo skills. Oh fuck! What is the word for skill? Son of a bitch. I'm gonna hate myself as soon as I see it. Skiru. I'm not gonna use Skiru. No. Jozu. Well, Jozu is like a rating of like how skilled you are. It's not really skill itself. I was looking for a more advanced word than skiru. Boku no Nihongo skiru. Be able to use that to find that fucking book, man. I'm telling you. A physical copy, right? Like, I've actually gone to it's on the Japanese Amazon. Yeah. Right here. If anyone can help me get this book, shit, there's only one left in stock. I'm too retarded to have a Japanese Amazon account. I can get it on Kindle easily, I guess. I've got like a Japanese fucking Nintendo Switch setup, so I can actually play. Oh shit! Shout out to the fucking Stratum. Oh my god, what a dope boss man! I can't believe that guy's fallen. Does it have to be in English? No. I would prefer the original Japanese. Like, I've invested enough time in Japanese to this point where I should really get it booted back up. And the deeper I go into my programming, I find a lot of my Japanese skill kind of coming back and interest in that kind of topic. It went hand in hand when I was in college because I was simultaneously taking mid-level computer science as well as kind of advanced Japanese, with the intent of actually getting a minor in foreign languages with a concentration in Japanese. No way. The book at the moment looks like it's actually, this is a cheaper amount than I've seen. I don't know what oversized means exactly, but this book would be so dope on my shelf, man. Like, this is a digital copy that I managed to dig up on the net, right? It's kind of a fun, domain. This shout outs to the guy who wrote the book, like, in the first place, because Quines as a topic is just really fun. Look at this one. All right, Yamanote, sorry. So this dude, he even has the GitHub for it. So I don't think that link. Let me copy the actual URL, because this dude's GitHub is still up. So here's the actual code for the client. Like, that's pretty sick looking on its own. But the idea with this one is that every time you run it, it's supposed to give you a different train station. So, like, there's all these different train stations, and, like, it's kind of a Japanese nerd thing to, like, memorize the order that certain trains run in. I'm sure that's a thing in America too. But this dude wrote a Quine that generates the different stations of this particular train line in order, and then starts back at the beginning for infinity. So you could, like, run this code. Do I even have it Ruby installed? Could I, like, run this right now, like, as a test? Which Ruby? Nice. Okay, so let's make a Ruby folder. Make a Quines folder, and then let's take this code. Yamanote. Alright, so to run it, we have to just run Ruby on that file. And it outputs the next station in the line. So if we run it again by piping that output into the Ruby interpreter a second time, and actually I'll clear the screen every time I do this. Oh wait. Okay, so that one's actually a 3-character kanji sequence. So if we were to run it a third time, you get yet a new one, and every time you run it, we get a new one. And so I could even set this up to animate, right? Like, while true, do clear, and then we would run Ruby. Actually, we're going to cat Yamanote to test.rb. Oops. So while true, do clear, Ruby test Ruby, output it. Wait. Yeah, Ruby test Ruby, and then we're gonna write test Ruby out and overwrite by doing this. We're gonna write the output over itself, and then we're gonna sleep for 3 seconds. 2. Wait. I think that messed it up. I think I have to write it to a new file and then move that new file to the old file. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay. Check it out. This is an animation, man. So it's going to rotate through every single station in the Yamanote line and print them out to the screen, along with the source code for each run. Now, one thing that's really interesting to note is that the beginning sequence of the source code is different every single time, it looks like the actual character symbols. So it's really curious for even just this one thing that this guy created, how he went through all of the effort to make this. Very beautiful. This guy is a very clear genius and probably underpaid in whatever it is he's doing in life. That's one reason I want to get that book, just to show love. So, oops. Getting back to my own clients, right? So the experiment with putting spaces before and after semicolons worked, and that was based off the idea that I understood about the C syntax, is that you can have any number of spaces in front of and behind a semicolon as you want. It doesn't matter, so long as the semicolon's there to indicate end of statement. The parser does not care. So I changed it up a little bit, I believe. So Q5A, so let's do diff Q5A, Q5B. Uh-oh. No new line at end of file. Oh, something slightly different here. Oh, one has 2 spaces. So actually this was an experiment in adding spaces every time you compile. So I think if I compile Q5B a third time, write it out to Q5C, yeah, it has 3 spaces after everyone. So like the number, oh, the name of the book, The World of Obfuscated Artistic or Esoteric Artistic Programming, but I will link the URL in chat right now. This is the Japanese name right here, and the English name So let's see what else. Um, so the Q5 experiment also worked, knowing that I could have a way to systematically add spaces one at a time. So how did I achieve that? Let's move on to Q6. So this was an attempt to clean up the process by moving things into individual functions. Double quote. See, this is like space, semicolon, space, I believe. So if I compile Q6, it adds a space between everything. So this would be Q6A.C. So it does a very similar thing. It continuously adds additional spaces in between semicolon and itself. So the initial one had one extra space, or the initially generated one, but here everything's kind of cleaned up. Q7, even cleaner, but this one does something different. So here, instead of putting additional spaces, I've put a new line. So whenever we encounter semicolon, I believe this is semicolon, we do a semicolon and a new line. That's what 10 is. So in your initial print character check, you have to check all of your special characters in your Boolean expression. It's very straightforward. That dog is wagging its tail. Let's see. Even further, what happens if we were to compile Q7A? We don't have Q7A. Q7A.C. So Q7 is definitely a Quine once you actually print it out. So the output for this generates Q7A. And this is a Quine. This will always print out exactly same thing because of exactly this line of code right here. If we hit a semicolon in our character processing, we print 59 and then we print 10. In other words, semicolon, new line. So next, what did I do with Q8? So I set up individual functions to print individual characters. That's what AC is. We have a new line function that takes advantage of that function. We have a space and we have a quote. However, we do not have a full program yet inside of here. This was an experiment, so what did the results yield us? So it prints out the initial string fine, followed by a blank, empty main. It's kind of boring. What about Q9? Q9's a lot more advanced. It even includes code for tabs. Why would we need tabs? Let's find out. We have something called open curlies, also a variable is first new line, and also space count. So Q9 actually makes an effort to print the program by splitting it up into columns. So by properly tracking certain locations where you are in the printing process, you can take advantage of the fact that the C syntax allows for basically unlimited white space in between certain characters. So long as you know where to do this, where to begin and end your indentations as well as your new lines, you can kind of start styling things and doing cool things. As an example of this, we can start putting things into 2 columns. I believe that he actually has a thing on the 2-column Quine. They even have like an example of like how to go about building the Quine, right? How to deal with the self-referential aspect. He uses Ruby as an example of this, but then we start to get into the column Quine. So they have even example for how to do this, and a lot of the initial code that I started off with is exactly based off of this. Even right here, this is the crux of the whole thing. Oops. Right here. You have your main program shoved inside, as well as the self-referential character handled. That's right there. So at a certain point, you start to ask, well, okay, that's great, I can print the program out, but how do I style it differently? And that's where character processing is so important, because as you come up with new rules, you have to make sure that the code that you add in one part of the program is simultaneously added in the string that references the program itself. This is a very short Quine, and it takes advantage of printf to use things. And actually, I could go through that process to use printf a bit more in that creation process, right? But my brain, the way I kind of like to do things, is very procedural, and could go back and try to take advantage of percent codes. Hey, give me one moment, y'all. Alright, sorry about that. I'm back. Um, so, trying to figure out what we're going to do for dinner. Um, see, we're still hanging out. Glad to see the three people chilling on my stream. Um, how to use language features to string functions and procedures. So, like, they give examples of very simple mechanics. The idea is that, if a language is Turing complete, then you can technically implement a Quine in it. Um, prove the existence of the qualum Quine. The foundations of mathematics theorem called the recursive theorem proves that Quine can be written in a Turing complete language. I think I just said that, right? I don't go into the meaning of Turing completeness. Read the Theory of Computation textbook if you want to know, but most programming languages are known to be Turing complete. So you can write Quine in most languages. Since it is a great deal, I will only introduce the atmosphere about this proof. First, assume the following. All programs shall always input one character string and output one character string. Write P approximates Q, that the programs P and Q behave in the same way for any input string. The program may use the eval-like instruction E, P, and S. A program is also a type of character string. Behavior in the same way means when program P and Q are given the same character string and executed, if P outputs the character string S, Q also outputs S. And if P becomes an infinite loop, Q also becomes an infinite loop, is what that means. E, P, and S is a function that receives the program P and the input string S to P and returns the output string as a result of executing P. Note, even when thinking in a language where eval is not built in, if you decide to implement a function equivalent to eval on your own, you can argue the same as this proof. The C compiler is written in C, so in theory it should be possible. In fact, we know that eval can be written on its own in a Turing-complete language. There have definitely been, since this book has come out, many attempts at people, implementing like a C shell, like a C interpreter, for better or worse. Theorem. For any program F, there exists a program P such that P approximates evaluating F of P. Proof. Consider the following strings. Whoa, Jesus, Jira. Scared the shit out of me. Fuck. Thank you. Appreciate that. Money well spent. We're going to learn how to write very useful programs called Quines, written by a very prominent Japanese programmer, No Yosuke, I believe is his name. Here is his GitHub. It's github.com/mame. First of all, he has a sick fucking user handle. Sorry, Yusuke Endo is his name. He's also, like, currently, I think, one of the head winners of the IOCCC. So he's definitely, like, a real one, right? The IOCCC is a thing I've wanted to participate in a long time, and would love encouragement to get back in that direction, which is yet another reason I started working on my game in C++ again. Here's all of his, mentions here. I haven't gone through any of these really, honestly, but we'll dig into his backstory and become better programmers ourselves. Getting back to his proof here. Considering the following strings H, E, and P. H is a program that outputs a result of E of X, X, Y for the input character string Y for the input character string X. E is a program that outputs the result of E of F of E of H of X for the input character string X. And P is output character string when the character string E, and the cats, enters the room, makes his presence known, rubbing his face all over my book. You piece of shit! Don't even eat my books. That's uncalled for. Look, you peed on my bed the other day. I'm. We're gonna get over it, but I cleaned your litter box, so you should be fucking happy, bro. God damn. It was very interesting. The book he was gnawing on. I just pulled this out to start working on it again. The Artist's Way, a spiritual guide to higher creativity, by Julia Cameron. And how I acquired this book is a very funny story. Long story short is that I was kicked out of my grandmother's home in Florida by my Uncle Daryl for about a month. I didn't have anywhere else to go except for a friend's residence in a trailer in South Georgia. I stayed with this friend and his friends and his mom and the two friends that they invited in and the two dogs for about a month. A lot happened during that month, but a previous person who rented the room that I was staying in, because I was actually paying rent and actually helping, improving the life and situation in general. This book was in that room and nobody claimed it, so I just took it. It was like, this seems like a cool book title. I want to dig into it. And it's actually good. Like, I've gone through about half of it so far, and it's kind of like a way to help guide your own writing process. I'm certain that Lode's heard of Julia Cameron. Would not be surprised. For each definition, the following can be said. E of h of x of y is approximate to e of x of y for any character string xy, and for any character string x of e of lower e of x approximates e of f e of h of x. P equals e h e. I'm not going to read the rest of that out loud anyway. But essentially, if you've ever gone through a mathematical proof, you can prove that this is the case, and you can even write code to kind of like formally witness it. Try to complete Quine by self-escape. So, yeah, the C language Quine is a poorly behaved program for the sake of simplicity. There is no pound include stdio. It is better to make the first argument of printf a string literal. There is no return 0, and there's no line break at the end of the file. Try writing a polite C Quine that eliminates these issues. So, in other words, use good programming to actually satisfy the warning messages while still making it a Quine. Sick handle, though. Yeah, for real. That was sarcasm. Very useful program. Jesus Christ. He even has this big ramble at the very beginning of the book about how useless these programs are, but that's besides the point. Useful in, I would describe, programming chops. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I try to be an optimistic, positive person. Try to be, keyword. Let's see. Let me shrink this text down a little bit. So he even gets into like how to remold shape. So like he gives us an example of a Ruby Quine where he can kind of shape it as a box. And this is something that I'm working on towards getting to in C, deciding on how to best go about such a program. Or rather, even still, what other shapes I might want to shape a program into. It's like, for instance, I really enjoy that Yamanote one, just for the fact that he has embedded kanji into the art. Maybe it's possible to do this with like ANSI, like escape code art, like with colors, using an editor, or maybe not even using an editor. I've enjoyed the idea of like generating ASCIIs from code, or rather generating art from code, like running a program and generating an image or something to this effect. So the self-restoration square is kind of cool because you can, like, as an example, put it in any shape that you want, and when you run it, it'll still become a square again. Um, a lot of these examples are using Ruby. And talking about evolving Quines, which is exactly where the space semicolon pattern came from in my case, although it's not a very interesting or pretty looking state change. It's an example of evolving state between subsequent runs. Getting back to my code. So one of the things I started doing is I started tracking if it's the first new line, whether or not we have open curly braces, and the number of space counts that we currently have when we're actually attempting to put spaces between things. So taking a look at Q10, it's more of the same. It's the same idea, trying to balance two sides that get generated. So like you could put the whole program in here, and then the whole thing should come out, you know, the same exact way. So see, we don't have a Q11, so like taking a look at Q10 and going through the whole process, here's what this would look like. We're going to do CPQ10 to Q10 test, so that way I can edit this one safely. So this is going to be kind of silly because I don't really know the best way to go about doing this part. But what we're doing is we're going to be embedding the entire program into a string. So what time is it? It's almost 6. Means it's almost time for me to feed the dogs, the cat, grandma, myself, do some dishes, tune into Jira's stream pre-LRH. Shoutouts to Jira, one of my biggest supporters over the years. Currently head admin in Pound Evil Dojo on EFNet, which is an IRC network for advanced individuals looking to break away from the system. And social media is dumb, but chatting is not. I've been pretty attentive in making these changes so far. We're almost done. Alright, we've one-lined the entire program. We're going to go ahead and delete this whole thing right there. We're going to paste it right here. Move that there. And move that there. Let's go ahead and compile that and run it. Look at that. Oh, that's so good. It's starting to make something happen, right? Like, it's not quite 2 columns. It's definitely heading in that direction. If we were to write this out to Q10A, then compile Q10A, then run that, write it out to Q10B, diff Q10A, Q10B. They are the same program. So Q10A looks like this. This is what we actually output. The way that the rules are currently written in Q10, which is actually why I created the backup copy, because formatting wise, it's a lot easier to read this than it is to like see the whole program on one line. Each one of the, and actually I should consider writing comments to like actually annotate like what I'm doing where, because I forget what each character symbol is. I very frequently have to look up ASCII codes when I'm working with this kind of material. But every time we encounter, like for instance, I believe 123 is open curly brace, 125 is closed. We print the character, the open curly brace, and then we actually new line, and then we reset our space count to 0. If we encounter 41, which I forget what that is, we print the character, but then we also tab a certain number of characters. Tab is just a loop that prints spaces so that we can have like actual spaces, not like tab characters. But I figure having actual utility functions in order to help ease certain actions, such as each one of these up here, makes the process a lot easier. It sounds like there is a delivery person. I'm gonna go check on that real quick. BRB. Okay, so there is a stray dog outside across the street. It's actually a dog that Hanky and I encounter frequently on our walks. He has somehow managed to jump his fence, which makes sense because that fence ain't shit for that dog. And he is across the street. I can't exactly just bolt out there after it to try and escort him over because there's a lot of factors at play. For one, I have to get these dogs outside in the backyard so that they don't chase after me out the front if I were to open the door. Poor Gus can't control himself, and he would just... If you want to say, hi, Gus, now's your time. Look at this guy. So, he was the one who was giving us all of the noise just now. Yeah, that's you. He's a very talkative guy, and I play ball with him frequently. At Evil Dojo, we are a big fan of dogs. To a point where we care about other people's dogs. Sometimes more than ourselves. Shoutouts to dogs and animals in general. I hear you, Jane. Hi. You want to say hi? No. They want me to go let them out in the backyard. Look at her. Look at this one. Look at this girl. She's a sweetie pie. Oh my god. Did y'all hear that? She's a sweetheart angel dog. But she's also a ninja and has found ways to escape under the fence multiple times. Thankfully, we've got it walled off now. I could go on about Quines, right? I think I've given a rundown on some of the basics stuff that I've worked on for my own fun sake, stuff that I'd like to get back to in the near future. Some ideas, some real basic ideas to evolve off of this are to add character processing sufficient to generate different shapes. And from there, the sky's the limit. We can get into 3D rendering. We could start doing some real crazy stuff. It'd be interesting to kind of like get the donut.c, that's the famous ASCII animation, into like a Quine format. I don't know what to do about this dog situation. But things are starting to pile up and get in the way of me being able to focus on code. Perhaps it's time to take a break. How long have we been on? An hour? They want us to let her. So actually, in the development of the Quine, it makes a lot of sense to not put the whole program in the string at first, so that way you can kind of test your idea out. It's possible I could even put like junk data into this test. So like if I were to compile it and print it out, maybe. So we've got like so I wonder if I just like put a whole bunch of this. Okay, so like every time we hit a close parentheses, it's actually the close parentheses where we're doing the tabbing. So in other words, if I came up with a certain rule set that made sense, well, no, after a certain point, it like the number of spaces seems to dwindle off. But I'm not doing any new lines, so that's probably one reason for that.
like it's getting it back to its initial state. So if I figured out like a good pattern for actually doing 2-column Quine, or rather formatting a single column in such a way as both sides are completely aligned, that would be one goal. From there, figuring out circles, like I said earlier, different shapes. This is just the beginning. And I want to get some of this code up. So let me go back through everything and figure out what is and is not good. Okay, Q1's good. Q2.c. Okay, so Q2 is good. Q3. Yeah. See, Q4. Actually, let me take a look at Q4B. No, they're the same. Okay. Yeah, wait. Yeah, this one is the one that adds the extra space. A, Q5B, Q5C, Q5, good. I actually had a Q6 and this has comments. So this was like probably one of the more cleaner. Q6A. Yeah, this is the one that adds spaces in between semicolons. So like over time, every time you run it, it's going to add space because the space from the previous run will still be there. Q6/comments and hit good. So Q7. Is where we're doing new lines. Q8. It's an attempt to start to really clean things up. Q9, we introduce tab. I don't think 9 was actually good. Oh, well, we didn't actually put the whole thing in there. So that makes sense. We can still move Q9 into the good folder. Okay, now we have the full Q10 again. Q10 is good. Now the folder's pretty straightened up. Calling them Q, like the file name system I have here, like sucks. Not sure 1.c is a good file name either. Maybe I should just leave it. Anyway, that folder's cleaned up in preparation for being able to share at some point. To have, like, you know, really fully fleshed out stuff. You want to have comments. And in the development of things, I frequently don't have these in the very beginning, because getting the rules down is different than getting the syntax correct. Because once you understand the changes that you want to make and the order that you want to make them, it makes writing the program a lot easier. And that's the part that I'm still working out on my own. Alright, well, I think with that said, it actually is time to take a break, because I am hungry. I'm getting in that direction. I could definitely... Have I tried Leet code? Oh yeah, well, I've tried a lot of these different programming challenge platforms over the years. To a point where I get tired working on those things and you don't really want to see it all the way through. No pun intended. Mostly out of just boredom and lack of interest. But I used to do programming challenges in high school and college as well. What were the names of the platforms? The ACM hosted many programming challenges when I was in school, as well as the UIL, and I think Acme might have been another one. I don't know. Microsoft gave me like free Windows XP when I was in high school, for participating. I later got free Windows XP for being a college student. Interesting how that works. But Quines. Let's fuck around with Quines in the future. Let's do game dev in C++ and Quines in C together before LRH. So, that said, my former neighbor, this dude, DJ Peach Cobbler, dropped a new video, and it made me think in terms of production quality as well as the amount of time spent on individual video releases before he actually drops them. I'd like to invest more time and effort into the content that I create. I think that even if I appear silly at times, God, I'm gonna sound like fucking Lex Friedman, or whatever his name is, Friedman. Even if I look silly on stream doing things, I think we can all learn together and have a good time doing it. Find a way to entertain each other and teach each other new things and come at things from new perspectives. Can we not learn without having new perspectives forced upon us when we don't want them? Anyway, it's been fun. Hope everyone is having a great day and has a great fucking fantastic Friday. Jira should be streaming in the next couple hours, I believe. And these dogs are crying for me to feed them, so I have to go. Y'all take it easy. Love you all. Hit up the following places if you want to catch me. And for those who know where to catch me on IRC, I'll see y'all later. Much love and peace out.